Hello, hello, friends. Thank you for tuning in to the Odd Thoughts podcast. At the Odd Thoughts podcast, we like to talk about the everyday odd thoughts, have relatable conversations, and just discuss whatever comes to mind. My name is Gunther, and I am your host, and welcome to episode 18. Um, for episode 18, I wanted to talk a little bit about writer's block, maybe just generally kind of creator's block, just a block in creativity. Then I kind of wanted to transition a little bit into a topic that I kind of thought was a little bit of fun. I wanted to talk about some musicians that turned actor, or like some musicians that just can act or whatever. And then I kind of wanted to end it on talking, or not talking, but playing a game that I played a few podcasts ago, a while ago, I guess. I wanted to play a game called Six Degrees of Separation. It's basically just a game where you take two different actor names and you try to connect them through six different movies. I played it a few episodes ago, like a while ago, so I wanted to play it again. Kind of seemed relevant for the episode. So if that's something you want to listen to, then I appreciate you stopping by. Appreciate you tuning in. Please enjoy all that good stuff. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing okay. I'm glad that we're here together. I'm glad that you're here listening to this podcast. I know that recently I've kind of had a little bit of a feeling I've kind of had a feeling of being lost a little bit. I know it's kind of a sentiment that a lot of people feel every day. Sometimes you're more present in certain moments in your life, but there's a lot of other moments in situations where you don't feel as present. I think a lot of times that I have like things on my mind that kind of block me from feeling like I'm able to achieve things, or just like a lot on my plate when it comes to real life errands and real world scenarios, or just being generally pretty down on myself. I think all that kind of accumulates to a feeling of being lost, of kind of having no direction, if you will. And those times do change. I know that I don't always feel lost. There are moments and there are times when I feel so present. I feel very aware of things. But when I do feel lost and I know that I'm off my direction, I know that that doesn't mean that I'm gone. I think sometimes that's an association of that when you're lost, you're gone. That maybe there's no coming back. That's just not true. I think it's okay to wander sometimes. I think it's okay to question yourself, to have these certain inquisitions, if you will, these certain inquiries about yourself. Sorry. So feel that lost, to feel that feeling of being lost. I think will eventually come with being found again. The path may be pretty long. The path may be pretty windy. And who's to say when it will happen? Who's to say that you know what it looks like when you find whatever it is? But just know that for the moment when you're lost, for whatever time you're lost, when you feel lost, when you lost yourself, you're lost in the world, just know that doesn't mean you're gone. Know that means you're not forgotten. I know that I tend to feel that when I'm lost and I don't know who I am, that the world has just shut me out, that I don't have a place. But that's just not true. Like I said, it takes a little wandering sometimes. It takes a little answering questions, asking questions. So I appreciate you being here at least right now. I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate you showing up every single day and at least I found you. At least you found this podcast. But I'm doing okay. I'm generally doing okay. Like I said, feeling a little lost at times. Just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. I have so many things that I think I want to do right, that I have these bigger pictures, and as I get a little older, I know that maybe sometimes there's a certain standard, whether it be a societal standard or standard that you kind of put on yourself at a young age, that you kind of want to achieve certain things at certain moments. Now that I'm in my late 20s, I'm kind of feeling like I'm stressing myself too much now. Feel like I'm kind of trying to like accelerate everything in a short amount of time when I know that I haven't put any work in before that. So that's kind of a little bit of a conundrum that I'm trying to figure out. Well, I just, I just wished I was at a different place, I guess. Even though I don't really know what place I would have, I'd want to be at. I don't, it's kind of that's a bigger question. I know that I'm okay. I know that I'm healthy. I'm a little emotional at times, but it's a human thing. I kind of feel blessed to be emotional at times. It makes all the emotions kind of make things special. The fact that I can feel so strongly about things, it really I think solidifies my human existence in a way. So I'm making it though. I'm making it every day. I can't give up. That's a big thing is knowing that I can't give up. I can't stop now. And I know that like when I figure everything out or when it comes to just like podcasting or whatever the future of creativity that I want to do and stuff like that, I think I just know that when it aligns, it'll become a little bit better. I think that's kind of what I'm searching for more is some sort of alignment, some sort of kind of schedule. Not always super organized because then that can cause a different types of flux when things get thrown off in that way, but just trying to figure out something that I know I have a system in. Like with everything. Just I guess even outside of my creativity and my podcasting and the future of whatever content I put out. I think I'm trying to figure out just like in life, you know, making sure that I do the same things when I wake up and I do the same things every day. Try to do the same things every day. Nothing super extravagant, just I could wake up and make sure I brush my teeth. If I burped into the mic, I try to move my mouth away. Sorry. But like, wake up and brush my teeth, stretch, do a little workout, you know, drink water. Just do like basic things, Do something that progresses me towards a little creativeness or progresses my podcast or my content in a certain way. Then also making sure I'm blending in having fun throughout the day. That, after I work 6, 7 hours on the computer and I'm can't do anything anymore, I make sure I have a little fun afterwards. I've recently got into a game that I've been playing with my little sister. It's called Project Zomboid. I freaking this game is it's so fun. I have so much fun playing it, and it's very much so the type of game that I like to play. It's a lot of like resource collecting and it's a survival game more so. It's not like your like Left 4 Dead zombie game where you're just like mowing down an endless amount of zombies. Project Zomboid is kind of more so you're just surviving. I don't like what the original Resident Evil was, if you ever played the original Resident Evils, like the first couple, they weren't like action oriented. They were very much so survival oriented. So I've been having a lot of fun playing that. Playing it with my little sister too. She's more the inept kind of computer gamer, so it's very new to me. But I am kind of cheating by using a controller to play a computer game. So shame, I know, shame. I should learn. Well, my fingers are just too big for the keyboard sometimes. Like I feel like especially with, you got to move with WASD, WASD, and I just can't. Like when I'm panicking, I'm just like pressing like 5 keys at once. So it gets it's tough. It's not a super easy game. You can make it easy, like you can adjust the difficulty, but that stuff I just like don't want to mess with too much of anything. I just want to kind of make it like as true of an experience or whatever to whatever the game does. But yeah, just making sure I keep a little blend of that kind of stuff. Just when I'm working on my podcast, making sure I'm really sticking my head down, and when I'm writing or whatever other creative adventures that I make sure I kind of stick my head down, but then allow myself to have fun. I watch YouTube throughout the day, but I always use that as kind of background noise. But making sure that I have fun. So yeah. So welcome to episode 18 though, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I appreciate all the feedback I've gotten. I'm just trying to throw in a little bit of everything right now, just trying to figure out what's best. I don't know what's gonna be best necessarily, but just having fun, kind of just doing whatever content comes to mind. Um, but yeah, for the first topic, I wanted to talk a little bit about writer's block. I thought that was kind of a very relevant topic right now in my life. Um, right now the podcast has kind of been the easiest thing to do. I'm still a little nervous whenever I get up on the mic and right before I like record, I'm already super self-conscious, but I've got like the topics kind of lined up and I really truly think I'm kind of in a zone with I know that I'm going to be able to talk about things and I know I can kind of blend certain things into the episode and I have ideas for like future content. So right now the podcast, I kind of want to start trying to get more into recording it like regularly. I don't want to upload it necessarily more often. I think like the couple days in between has been like so cheese, you know what I'm saying? It's been perfect. It gives me like enough time to think like enjoy that I uploaded something and think about the next thing. But like I said, I think maybe even the confidence would grow more so from just recording more often. I still upload the same amount of times, but if I record kind of every day and just kind of get used to it, try to treat it more like I've always tried to treat it like an open journal. But I do get nervous because if someone listens to it, I always want to try to do my best to represent good thoughts. I take a lot of pressure, I think, sometimes thinking that even if it's just one person that listens to this podcast and relates to something, or it helps them open up their minds to having conversations about whatever, not necessarily about what I talked about in the episode, but just conversations in general. I like that. But outside of podcasting, though, I have found a lot of struggle outside of podcasting. I've been trying to write more. That's kind of what I've been focusing more on. And I've kind of slipped away a little bit from drawing. I haven't drawn as much as I have in the last few months. I think sometimes it feels it comes from kind of a lack of creativity, which is a little weird to say. I know that I have like ideas always floating around in my head and I think sometimes I have a lot of ideas and that's a big thing above just trying to decide what I want to do creatively is a general like executive dysfunction. So I have all these ideas in my head, but I like don't know how which one is more important or more important is weird to say, but like which one I can really access at this moment and really feed into. So I get really scatterbrained with that. I think even I just don't even know where I want to take certain things and more so with the writing. Especially I want to talk about the writer's block. I've been trying to work on writing short stories because I kind of want to start doing narration videos, storytelling videos. It's just something that I think has been around on YouTube for a long time and even you could think about going back to like radio before TV, people would tune into the radio and listen to whatever program. I would love to bring that back kind of in a way, in a weird way. At least try to bring back like cool stories, going up like Orson Welles, how he got his start. Orson Welles, one of his claims to fame was the story of the Battle of LA, right? I think is what it was kind of called or whatever, or War of the Worlds type thing, where he like hopped up on the radio and he was like dead serious. He was like, "This is a serious announcement. Everybody watch out. There's, big robotic alien things coming out of the ground type thing or what I forget kind of the details. But he had everybody freaked out. He had to publicly apologize. But I just really have always been interested in that kind of storytelling aspect, that could those kind of those videos. And so I've been trying to write. I know that I could get around it by trying to go on Reddit, which I am right now. I'm trying to maybe kind of pile a compilation of different stories. But the idea is that I want to write my own. I want to write my own stories. There's something to the creative process, I think, that when you kind of start from the very beginning, the inception of even the idea of a story, and then you kind of put the outline together, and then you work on characters and you work on personality of characters, it kind of encompasses the whole story. And when it comes to that idea of then eventually doing like the narration videos and doing like the storytelling videos, I think it helps to have that whole encompassing experience with a story. So I think I scatter myself with so many different ideas. I start like a story and then I get like a couple of paragraphs in, I write maybe 1,000 words and then I stall out. I think I throw myself off sometimes thinking that I forgot like that I already forgot to tell something or I'm not being too detailed or I'm not being detailed enough, you know what I'm saying? But with the short stories, I know that I don't need to be super detailed. I think the whole point of the short stories is that theoretically I could just pop in on a certain moment in a wider or in a larger story. And that's kind of what the short story could be. I just find myself wanting to type and type and type and then next thing I know I'm like a couple thousand words in and I'm sure that like eventually I'll have a little confidence to do those kind of longer stories to but I want to make sure that if when I'm starting the narration videos that maybe I try to do more of the short stories. So I've just been generally pretty blocked on writing. I try to like think of maybe I'll think of one specific idea. I'm trying to I'm really honing in on I want to try to do a little bit of like scary stories, but I want to throw in also just like sci-fi stories and fantasy stories and as well as try to do maybe some true crime stuff, stories. So I get like too settled into certain parts of my brain when I'm trying to think of a certain topic. And I know that I feel like I judge the stories too much. Like I said, I get like 1,000 words in and then I start to judge my story. I'm like, this isn't that interesting or you should have said this and then I got to go back and redo it and then maybe then that kind of, hurts the congruity of the rest of the story. Congruity, continuity, that's what I really meant to say. So, but then I don't get to the end of the story, so I don't know how it's going to end. I think I should try to do my best to try to think of the process as like writing the whole story. Just go all the way through. Try to do your best to describe whatever happens, and then like add the details in. That's why I find like the outlines for stories kind of help me. It's like best. I like get to I kind of make all like the certain main parts of the story that happen, and then I can like feed into the rest of it, which helps. I got to remember that it's kind of like it's with creativity comes from the imagination. I sit here and I tell myself all the time that I have like this crazy good imagination, but then when it comes to trying to write up a story and trying to write, I get stalled, I get blocked. So then I feel a little hypocritical on myself a little bit. So I got to remember sometimes that I got to build it up in my head a little bit. Kind of like visualize it even in a way. Read it to myself first. Because I inevitably, as then I put it into like a physical representation, right? I start writing the pages and I start writing the words that then I can kind of throw in the other parts of the story. I find myself like, I just find myself always trying to think of new things too. And I just don't even make it through a story without just thinking that maybe I could do something else. I'm overthinking the story just constantly all the way through. I don't mind like a little detail, but I just gotta know how to throw it in, cleverly. I don't need to give like the killer's background story at the beginning of the story. I don't need to. I could just throw in little hints about his background. I don't have to have this whole big, the teenagers that are, walking through the mysterious woods, and I don't have to tell y'all who their family is. It doesn't really matter. It just matters that they're in the woods. So I think I go overwhelmed with try not to be too vague. I try to overthink, then it gets overwhelming in the other way, where I'm just like I've just written too much. I'm like 1,500 words in, and I literally haven't you haven't even seen the main part of the story yet. I haven't even told the main part of the story, so I get a little lost maybe I'd be better at writing books, but to sit there and try to think about writing a book is even a little difficult because then I got to think of like a longer story, try to think of multiple things. So I'm finding my balance. I know that I could do things to try to pull myself out of that writer's block. Like with reading stories on Reddit, I kind of get some ideas. I try not to reiterate any ideas. It feels that there's only a certain limitation to the stories you can tell a certain limitation. Sometimes your own creativity and just your language that you use it in is what kind of exceeds the that kind of thing. But the idea is that sometimes I get in the idea that there's only a certain amount of topics I could really talk about. So I feel okay with using similar ideas as other stories, but I'm trying to make sure I make it mine. Finding like finding my language, if you will. I think that I have a little hard time trying to figure out how I write, trying to find my language in that. Because, some stories I kind of get to writing and I have the idea of like a narration type video where it's kind of like, oh, the people are driving down the road and the next thing they know, they come around this corner. Ooh, they're in for a surprise, and then it leads into like some dialogue or whatever. And so that's kind of where I think I lean a lot towards is that type of storytelling. But then it's easy to write in third person, just talking about other people. But I don't want to do like a bunch of third person stories. I also try to write certain stories in like my perspective. Exaggerate as if I went through some scary, paranormal, supernatural, true crime thing. I try to it's like I said, I got to start with the inception of my mind, I think, right? I got to let my imagination take over first and let the imagination flow and decide everything from there. But and then like the creativity thing though, like I just know that I'll have my spurts and when I do create a story, I'll feel good about it. I know I will. I just got to find those things to fuel that creativity. So, like I said, reading other stories from Reddit has kind of helped. It has kind of given me, like I said, a new way to look at stories and find out a different language to use for stories and also give me ideas on what to tell. And just try to, like I said, just try to develop my own. Try to feel that way. And I know that with the drawing thing, when it comes to that, I haven't had a lot of inspiration. But maybe I should try to do simple things. I think sometimes I think too big. I've already got maybe like the end of of a story, or I got like a picture that I want that it looks like in my head, but I don't know how to do everything in between. So also maybe just doing my best to learn a little bit about writing and learn a bit about art and just try to like just try to like do my best to fit what fits me best. If I don't feel comfortable telling a certain story, then I shouldn't have to tell that story. If I don't feel comfortable writing in a certain language, then I shouldn't have to write in that language. Where the writer's block is real. That is for sure, and I'm feeling it very strongly. It's really blocking me. It's really blocking. The writer's block is blocking, and I'm blocked. That's what it is. Dude. Maybe if I was more of a reader too, that if I read like books, that I would just know a little bit differently. But yeah, that's okay though. I like I said, I'm working on it, and I know that when I hit my stride, I'll be in a stride, and I'll be fine. When I kind of get used to that, I get used to the process of story writing, and I kind of figure out what's the best way to outline and what's the best way to do this. I know that it'll do better. But yeah, well, let's transition into the second topic. I wanted to talk about for the second topic. I wanted to talk about a few musicians that either turned actor, like just straight up left music and went into acting, or or just musicians that kind of can't act. I was like making just a huge list too. I realized there are so many great and talented people out there that can do both. And I was even looking at like actors who turn musicians. So I know that there's future episodes I can do on this. But yeah, I found four examples, at least four of my favorites, at least kind of my favorites. And I just really wanted to I just highlight it a little bit and talk about the music that they made and kind of maybe if I love it or not, or and then talk about some of the movies they made and talk about what makes them great in that and take just kind of talk about what makes these people great in both and kind of the talent of these people. I don't want to dive too deep into the backgrounds of of the people I have on my list because that's kind of a thing that you could do on your own. That's it for another episode. Highlighting them would be a whole nother thing. but just talk about like when they started music, when they started movies, kind of the ebbs and flows of both. So, number one I had on my list, I don't think I would consider him like a number one favorite actor or anything like that, but number one I had on my list, it seemed like a pretty obvious one, was Mark Wahlberg. Now, Mark Wahlberg left music to act, so that's kind of, like I said, it's either musicians that left to act or musicians that can act and have done music as well. So Mark Wahlberg started music in 1989. If you don't know, Mark Wahlberg got very famous off of doing Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Sorry, how dare I mess that up? I don't want to disrespect the Funky Bunch. But yeah, it was a hip hop group, I guess, is what you would call it. And I also he has an older brother named Donnie Wahlberg. Wait, older brother? Is he older? I don't know if he's older actually, but he has a He has no, it's his older brother. Donnie is his name, and Donnie Wahlberg was in New Kids on the Block. And from what I read, I think Mark Wahlberg started with New Kids on the Block, but then like after a few months got kicked out because of XYZ. It's kind of like a thing with Mark Wahlberg's legacy is that he was kind of a shitty person, excuse my language, for back in the day when he was younger. But yeah, he said he started music in '89. And I guess that's kind of when he formed the Funky Bunch more so. And their first album was in '91, so just a couple years later. It was called Music for the People. And one of his big songs was obviously Good Vibrations, you know? That song still, I think, plays up on the radio. I hear it quite often. And from what I saw, that was the really the extent to their success was that album. Their last album was the next year. Literally, it was "You Gotta Believe." It's what it was. Yeah, "You Gotta Believe" is what it's called. So they had two albums and hopped in, hopped out type thing. I remember Mark Wahlberg, his whole style, right? It was the whole like bad boy from Boston type thing and the Calvin Klein ads and just the ridiculousness of it. But I know that even he's kind of aware of it now that he was douche, that he kind of it was just bad. But honestly, just thinking about making that transition, I don't know, it feels like that's just some people's nature, especially when you're someone who's interested in all that kind of stuff. And so he left. 1992 was the last album with the Funky Bunch, and then it showed that his first thing he did was a TV movie called The Substitute in 1993. So a couple years after that, I've never seen The Substitute, so I don't know what it's about. Could have done my research, but that's something you could do. So it was really quick after that. I mean, he was already pretty famous just by his looks and the Calvin Klein ad and stuff like that. So I mean, he was famous. And then eventually after that, the next year literally would be like his first kind of big movie, his first like really big release. He was in 1994, it was Renaissance Man, which I have heard of. He played Private Tommy Lee Haywood. I think I have heard of this movie. I might have watched it. I might have watched it. I'm so bad with movies sometimes. I like watch as a kid when I discovered what HBO and like, Cinemax and Stars. That was always like my background noise. I'd be doing just whatever else, just doing whatever, playing on like my PSP or playing something, and then I would just turn on HBO and watch any random movie that they had on. But it's humble beginnings for Mark Wahlberg. You can't really say much to his music they had a couple hits, but not much to his rapping skills. I mean, it was very like late '90s or late '80s, early '90s product of hip hop. So it was kind of funny. It just didn't seem like it was gonna last. Very thankfully, he transitioned to movies. And so after he did, yeah, Renaissance Man, eventually he would do the Basketball Diaries the very next year. Now I have seen the Basketball Diaries. He does that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's literally about a group of friends, three friends who all eventually become addicted to drugs, and kind of the whole like falling out of the whole teenage angst, the whole falling out of high school, and falling outs of their life, and kind of the seriousness of that. He played a very good character. His character's name was Mickey. Yeah, Mickey. And him and Leonardo DiCaprio had their character specifically kind of had a tight relationship, as I think I remember. And it's a really good, I think, introduction into being maybe considered a more serious actor even. I know I think from what I've seen behind the scenes is he took it seriously. Like he wanted, I mean, I think he really wanted to try to be. He didn't want to be Marky Mark anymore. He really wanted to try to transition into being Mark Wahlberg, to being an actor. And I would 100% go. I'd recommend you go watch the Basketball Diaries. It's a devastating movie. It's sad, and Leo's character is the main character, and he gets the whole arc. The Basketball Diaries was a book that was written by the guy by Leo, the character that Leo plays, by him, and it's a biography. And then after that movie, Mark Wahlberg would move on to go do what's next? Boogie Nights a couple years later. He might have done something in between, but I just kind of highlighting some of his better, or at least what I think might be his best movies. Basketball Diaries is definitely one of them. But a couple years later, he did Boogie Nights. I don't really watch Boogie Nights because it kind of makes me it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't really want to watch a movie about a porn star. You know what I'm saying? And I'm about to say the most controversial thing in the world, maybe not the most, but I'm not a big fan of Burt Reynolds. I've said it before. I'll always say it that I'm not that big fan. I'm not a big fan of Burt Reynolds. I don't like him. Think he's kind of a douchebag. He's dead now, so you know, forget about him. But very famously, Mark Wahlberg and Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights. I think that was more so the star growing. I think as I kind of recall, that's kind of the movie that really launched him into stardom. That really kind of made it everything. Kind of made him a movie star, if you will, if you even want to say a movie star. But yeah, that's a great movie. It's a great movie. It really is. I mean, it's not like people talk about it all the time, and it was for sure like a place where he could dig his teeth in and do a pretty big production, and it really started a whole thing for him. It has made him famous all the way up until today. And then what else did I wrote? My favorite personal favorite is I wrote down what did I write down? Oh, the fighters. I was gonna write down Four Brothers, but I'm about to talk about another actor from Four Brothers in a second, so just hold on. But the fighter, again, he plays Mickey Ward this time, which is a real person. Him and his brother. They were Mickey was a boxer who was just a good old boy from Boston type thing. Kind of a story that Mark Wahlberg said he really related to. He took it serious. He really wanted to portray these brothers as best as he could, and him and Christian Bale, and they did. Man, I love that movie. Just it's a movie about toughness and perseverance and just how you put your whole back on a dream type thing. That's all he wants to be is a great boxer. He doesn't have to be the most famous or he wants to be a world champion, but you just want to be great. You just want to be a great boxer. And I think I think was a movie that through accumulation of multiple roles that Mark Wahlberg started taking things. I think he was taken more seriously for sure. And he's kind of gotten to that point where I mean, 100% one of the modern day movie stars. I think you can't really that'd be dumb to say otherwise. But I do appreciate Mark Wahlberg. I really do. And I know that he has a couple things coming out to be announced apparently. He's got a movie called Arthur the King coming out, as well as Our Man from Jersey, and then The Family Plan. I didn't read into any of those, but they're coming out in to be announced, TBA. So y'all stay tuned. Mark Wahlberg was more so he's a musician that left music and turned into an actor. That's more so what you could say. That was kind of what he did. But the next person I want to talk about is kind of did it both. Kind of was able to still continue to do both. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Queen Latifah. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I don't know why I laughed. I love Queen Latifah. She makes me happy. I love all her movies. I love her music too. I mean, when I started listening to like old school hip hop and I started kind of diving into that a little bit more, When I started listening to like females of rap and hip hop, she was one of the very top names that would pop up always. So I just love me some Queen Latifah, and I think she has a little bit more of a of a likableness than what Mark Wahlberg does in a way in both music and acting. You know what I'm saying? And what I noticed is that she kept a good blend between the two. She kind of was always able to, at least through the 90s into like late 90s into the 2000s, she was able to do both. Now she's kind of in that like superstar mode where she doesn't really have to do anything. She has like a show and stuff like that, but she doesn't really have to do anything and she could just be Queen Latifah. But yeah, Queen Latifah started in 89, just like Mark Wahlberg. Just doing her thing. Her first album came out in 89 as well, called All Hail the Queen, like literally a perfect name. And it's very hip hop rap, like early 90s New York style album. It's very that boom bap kind of style. And she's fantastic. She has a really rough style, you know what I'm saying? I can speak more on her music than I can on Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. There's not a lot to really talk about there, but for her, there's a lot more to talk about. Unbelievably talented, good lyricist, in her style. It's that I'm a very big fan of style when it comes to hip hop. You could either have a really unique style or you can just have like that really easy listening style. And Queen Latifah is the easy listening. She kind of reminds me a little bit of Nas in that way. Nas is way better, exceptional, more exceptional. But it's that easy listening. It's that kind of the way they deliver, and it's that truthfulness that they speak, and it doesn't feel like repetitive. And so, I mean, from the get go, she started off hot. You know what I'm saying? Like, came out right off the bat. And I was looking into some of her other albums, and I was looking into the rest of them, and I guess from what I saw, her best album, or at least what's considered her best album, is the Dana Owens album, which came out significantly later, like 15 years later. She had put out a series of hip hop, albums before she started kind of diving into acting. But this was a shift from hip hop. This was a shift into R&B, kind of like jazz and kind of that soulful music. Something she very much so showed off in Chicago, which I'll talk about in a second. But it was pretty. It's a She's got a beautiful voice, so it was a shift in everything. But it wasn't necessarily a shift in who she was as a person because you kind of saw her growing into that type of person as things turned, kind of went on. She wasn't kind of that rough, tough girl anymore. She kind of turned into, she was a little more, calm, if you will. You can't take the hood, I guess, out of the girl. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but I've never listened to that album. Truly, I've never listened to that album, but I don't mind hearing her sing. It's not like I don't mind hearing her sing, that's for sure. Yeah, and it came out in 2004, is what I read, right? Yeah, 2004. So literally like right around that time of Chicago. And then her last album was called Persona, which is a return to rap, basically. And I've never listened to it. I'm a little slacking on that, but very much so. It's kind of cool, I guess, for people to see that, to see her turn back to rap and hip hop. And I know that I think it was a little bit of a collaborative effort. I think in that album where she made sure she brought on some hitters, or at least people that she was friends with or whatever. But as she was doing music and stuff like that, she very much so was trying to do acting. I think this would like I said, sometimes people are just talented and it just takes a foot in the door, if you will. And so from what I was reading, the first thing she ever did it was a movie. She was in a movie called Jungle Fever in 91. I think it's a Spike Lee movie, and she plays a character called LaShawn. I've never seen it, but I know it was kind of a smaller role. It was kind of like a background role kind of thing. More so for like, oh, hey, there's Queen Latifah in a movie type thing. Probably knew a handful of the people too that worked on the movie. Spike Lee, especially. If I think, like I said, I think Spike Lee made that movie. But as it typically is, when you're trying to just get your feet wet, you do whatever. It don't matter, and especially if it's something like that where you work with Spike Lee, it kind of feels like that's a pretty big thing to work. That's a pretty big jump. And if Spike Lee likes you, he'll definitely put you in more of his movies. It's kind of what we've seen. But after she did Jungle Fever, um, she did a couple other things, but it really what set it off for her was the movie Set It Off in 1996. She played Cleo. Yeah, Cleo, right? Oh man, I hope I didn't get that wrong. It's Cleo. I'm pretty sure that's her name. Yeah, 1996 though. That was a few years after she'd already been into the music industry and had been trying to break her teeth on acting, and she did Set It Off. Actually, before that, I'll mention it before that. She was on a TV show for like from like 93 to 98 or something like that. Yeah, 93 to 98. It was called Living Single, and that's kind of what made her famous in acting. I apologize for skipping over that. I've watched clips from that episode from that show, and she's just funny. She's always had kind of that calm, laid back, kind of chill vibe, and she's very funny in that. And I think very thankful that that was able to showcase things for her, but also not just paint her in a certain box as a sitcom actress, you know. So when she did Set It Off, it was very much so. Even though she kind of has some comedic relief in the movie, it's very much so not a comedy. You know, it's four women having to rob, you know, to survive, literally just trying to make ends meet. It's a good movie, and very much so made me fall in love with Queen Latifah and you know, unfortunately at the time Jada Pinkett Smith and Vivica Fox, right? Isn't that right? I feel so dumb sometimes. I just wish, like I said, you can look it up. But that movie was really good, and I think took her even out of that kind of silliness of the sitcom and made it so like that she was maybe taken more seriously, and also kind of like you know a good a very serious part like a lead in the movie too. And then a few more years, she'd do a couple more things, and then kind of famously in 2002, right? Yeah, 2002, she did Chicago. She played Mama in Chicago, Mama Morton in Chicago. And so she was able to then show off not only the beautiful acting ability that she had, but also that singing voice that she became so at least kind of like known for in my mind. I thought that was so awesome. I really did. I thought she was so good in that. And the movie in general, I mean, it won so many awards, and I think she won an award for it as well, Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress or whatever. But I think that kind of showed case both talents that she still had the music in her, but she did have the acting ability too. And then another movie that I haven't watched, but I've heard so much about that I've heard constantly about is it's a movie called Bessie. It's about a woman named Bessie Smith who was a jazz singer in like the early 1900s, like the 20s or 30s or something like that. And I would love to watch that movie. I should watch that movie just to see Queen Latifah sing and portray this person. And I think that's probably a perfect casting. I know a little bit. I think about Betty Smith. I think I've heard her name maybe or Bessie Smith, not Betty. Sorry, already messed up. Bessie Smith. I think I've heard a little bit about her. So it's a movie that biographical films. I always feel a little tepid on, a little timid to watch. I just don't want to see someone make a character out of someone. That's what made Ray very special. I think Jamie Foxx was really great as Ray Charles, and it wasn't a character. It didn't feel like he was making fun of Ray or he was pointing any like weird things about Ray Charles. He played him very really. So I think Queen Latifah would 100% have the ability to do the same thing. Yeah, and so and then in most recent years, she has done a couple movies. She did Hustle, that one with Adam Sandler, which was in 2022. She also did a couple other movies that year, The Tiger Rising and End of the Road. So she's still pretty active. And then she's also in a TV show right now called The Equalizer, which is based off the movie. Her name's Robin McCall. I never knew. I kind of knew, but I didn't know. I'm not gonna watch. I love the movies, the Equalizer movies, but I'm not gonna watch the show. So it's cool to see that though she's in it and that she does it, and she's that it's still equal to the movie. But Queen Latifah, I think, has kept the is she's a perfect example of the blend between musical talent and acting that she very much so can do both with ease and very much so accepted in both. And I would love to see her hear another Queen Latifah rap album. Why not? Why not? Just put it out. Get everybody you know, all your friends on it, and let's do it. And I think just she's such a lovely person. At least from what I know. Maybe I haven't read too much into her, but she's awesome. So lastly, I'll talk about one more person. This guy he's very dear to my heart. I'm a super fan of this guy. I think he's an amazing musician. He's my favorite rapper of all time. He's one of the best, and in the movies he does, it's kind of surprising to see him in movies, and always pulls through. And that man is Andre Benjamin himself, Andre 3000. He is the man. Andre 3000 is the absolute legend. I idolize this dude. I think he's smooth as all hell. I think he's always been one of the best lyricists, one of the best musicians, always had good melodies and good rhythm and then the times he has jumped into movies, he has done incredibly well. I feel like every time he pops into a movie, I can feel I'm like, dang, Andre's in that. Dang, you did good in that movie too. It's so man, I try to I was a little more personal with this one. I kind of a little more objective on his best movies and best whatever type thing, you know. But Andre 3000 started in 92. Him and Big Boy when they started doing Outcast. Just two dudes who had similar minds, literally just like thought similar and were from a similar place and musically kind of were on that same vibe a little bit. And so it was a match made in heaven. And then a couple years after that, they would put out their first album. 1994, they put out Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. Sorry for messing up a little bit. Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music. And right off the bat, it was literally like kicking in the door to the hip hop industry. It was these two young cats from Atlanta, and nobody was listening to music from Atlanta at the time. Nobody was listening to music from the South at the time, or at least rap music. And they came in hard, man. They literally, I will always say that it's very hard to find a better 3 album stretch than Outkast's like first 3 albums, or even like you could take out Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music, and then you can go with their next three. So after '94, after Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music in '96 was when they put out AT Aliens, I think, or '95, and then '98 they put out Aquemini. And I would say that's a great 3 run stretch right there. That those albums are unbelievable. Aquemini is my favorite. 100% it will always I'll always say my favorite album. Came out in '98. It was the late '90s, and they were so innovative in what I think their sound. It was so psychedelic and it was so soulful and it was about black excellence and black acceptance and I don't know anything about that. I'm a white dude from the suburbs, but I feel it, dog. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it bleeding through the songs, dude. And they took such a big jump from the first to the second album when they made AT Aliens. It was like a major jump, and then when they went from AT Aliens to Aquemini, they just honed everything in to the max. And then they put out Stankonia after that, and Stankonia literally was like the start of crunk kind of music. It was kind of that start of that whole era, and a bunch of hits off that album. That's when the hits started coming in. They're very much so just like legitimate hip hop, and they always have been. But beauty of them is that they crossed over so easily into the mainstream with Stankonia, and then just recently announced their album Speaker Box and A Love Below. It's a 2 CD album. Recently, just became the best-selling album of all time, and that just blows my mind. Something I've said for so long is how great Outkast is, and hopefully then that album has taken kind of that number one spot. That opens it up for everybody to listen to all of Outkast. It's just amazing. They're just so good, and just the popularity that they had. And their last album was a couple years after that. They put out Idlewild in '06, and that was their last album. Put out a movie too that went along with that movie or with that album, and or album with the movie more so, and it just wasn't that good. You could tell it was made for the movie. But Outkast left a legacy that is so untamed, and I think that the fact that they kind of jumped out of it when they did is perfect. We get to hold on to the albums that we have, and we get to listen to the albums that we have, and cherish that. Just cherish the moments that we have. Yeah. And then when during his, sorry, I'm like confused on what I'm talking about. But during music, he tried acting. He very much so, I think, tried to do both. His first movie was a movie called Hollywood Homicide. He played a character called Silk Brown. I didn't write down the year, which I'm surprised. But I know I think it was in the '90s when he did that. I've heard of Hollywood Homicide. I think I say that all. I like I said, I'm so bad with movies, But that was it was very much so just it was just something that he kind of just wanted to experiment with. I know that Andre has always tried to keep himself open. I think it's always has been his vibe is he's always tried to just see what comes next. It's not about trying to set it. It's not about trying to keep with the trends. It's about setting a trend, if you will. Obviously, acting has been around for a long time, but it's just what he wanted to do. It was something that came into kind of his vision. But after that, then he started to kind of hit a stride, and he doesn't have a lot of credits. And this is where he's the kind of opposite as we've worked through the different names. Mark Wahlberg to Queen Latifah to Andre 3000. He's more successful musically than both of those two combined. But acting wise, he's only done a couple things and very very few things comparatively to them. But every time I see him in a movie, obviously I'm going to be a fan. Like one of my favorite movies he does is Four Brothers. Four Brothers came out in again. I did not write a name for them. I did not write a date or a year for the movie. Whoops. But he plays one of the brothers. His name's Jeremiah, which and he plays in the movie with literally Mark Wahlberg, that was one of my favorite Mark Wahlberg movies. He also is in the movie with Tyrese Gibson, which Tyrese is a musician turned actor, and then Garrett Hedlund, a young Garrett Hedlund. I love that movie, and I think he's absolutely fantastic in it. He plays such a good character, and kind of you kind of are a little shady at him about him at first, and you don't really know much, at first, but then you get to love him because he's one of the brothers, and he loves his brothers. Four brothers. But I think that kind of introduced us to a little bit of that acting ability with Andre. He's not going to do anything extraordinary with his performance in a way, or have any crazy line deliveries. It's just going to be that it's just going to be it's a good part, and he usually does pretty real people, realish people. And then a couple years after that, I know it was a couple years, he did Semi Pro, which is just funny. I absolutely love Semi Pro, and I think that movie is just incredibly funny. He plays Clarence Withers is the name, but Coffee Black, Downtown Malone. He has like 100 different names in the movie. He's funny, man. In I can believe he can play basketball a little bit, at least comparatively to everybody else in that movie. So it's fun to see him just delve into it a little bit, just try things out. I get very upset that I don't get to hear any more Outkast music. I can listen to their albums as much as I want, but I don't. We're never gonna get any new Outkast music. He very much so. I one time heard an interview where he was talking about how the whole point of hip hop is to be hip. It's the whole point of is to be on the trend, and he never wanted to be a parody of the trend or be falling behind the trend. So he jumped out with Big Boy. Him and both they both had that kind of idea. They don't want to fall behind, and that's fair enough. So I still got their albums to listen to. I still got Outkast albums to listen to. But yeah, yeah, but and hopefully we'll get some more movies. I didn't see what he if he's doing anything recently. Let's see. Recently, he's doing in 2022. He did a movie called Showing Up, and then a movie called White Noise. I haven't heard of those two. I think I heard of White Noise. It's not the scary movie White Noise, obviously, but I think I have heard of that one. And he also had which very rude of me to forget, but he also had a TV show called Class of 3000, which was on in like the mid 2000s, right? Yeah, '06 to '08. I was a little bit older, so I don't remember watching it, but I remember they had the cartoon. It was on Cartoon Network, and they had a game on the Cartoon Network website that was like a music game that you can. It was a Class of 3000 like music game, and you can make your own music. I wonder if it's still around. That'd be kind of cool to play. But yeah, Andre 3000 is the man. Yeah, all of them, all three people I talk about, they're awesome, and it's honestly one of those things to find out how talented people are. It's kind of crazy, and whether it's you're able to keep the balance of music and acting, or you kind of make the full out transition like Mark Wahlberg did, or you keep the balance like Queen Latifah did, or you're always going to be known as a musician like Andre 3000. I think it's cool to see both. I don't think it's lame to try. That's for sure. So, and they've all done pretty good with that. I know I've got more on the list too. There's so many like more names and future episodes. I know I'll be able to talk about that. And that's kind of fun is to think. And also, like I said, there's some actors who turn musicians. You know what I'm saying? So that'd be kind of fun to talk about them. Just and go look these people up too. By the way, like go watch their movies, go look them up. I just wanted to highlight them a little bit. All right. I'm gonna I was gonna wrap up the episode, but I do want to play the last thing. I want to play, like I said, a while ago on one of my episodes, I played a game called 6 Degrees of Separation. And I kind of thought it was a fun game. I thought it's a game where you draw two different actor names and you try to make a connection between the two through different movies. And so I don't know how many examples I'll do, but I'll at least do one. You know, I want to play the game, and it's very relevant to what I'm talking about and stuff like that. So we'll have a little bit of a longer episode today. So I've got my trusty names over here on my bed. Got a bunch of it's just I try to think of so many different random whatever. So I'll grab two. Let's see. Okay, two names. Okay, so the first name I grabbed is Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson and Gene Hackman. Ooh. Samuel L. Jackson, very famous for tons of things, you know. Pulp Fiction is probably what I most know him from. And Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman's famous for The Replacement or Superman. I guess you could say that too. Done tons of movies. Wow, this one's going to be a little harder. I think I'm going to try to go from Gene Hackman because I know less Gene Hackman movies. Wow. All right, so I'm gonna go with my like the only way I can do like only way I can work through it I think is if I go Gene Hackman in the replacements. He was in the replacements with Keanu Reeves. All right, so we got that step. At least we know we got that done. Keanu Reeves was in. He's been in a bunch of different movies, man. Golly, I'm just trying to think like just because the beautiful thing about Samuel L. Jackson and being in Marvel movies is that everybody's in a Marvel movie. Dang. Trying to think here. Trying my best to think. So if you go Gene Hackman to Keanu Reeves, and then Keanu Reeves, he's been in a bunch of movies too, but it's only like there's only a few that like you have like like multiple crossover people in the movie. Like what if I did Samuel L. Jackson? Hmm. Dang, I see how now I'm stalled. This is exactly, this is why it's so funny. I'll just try, like I said, I might just play one and we'll just try to like get through it. All right, I'll switch to Samuel L. Jackson. I'll try to think of something that I can think of him in. I'll think of Pulp Fiction. I'll think of Uma Thurman. You know, that's a little bit of a weird one. Uma Thurman. Uma Thurman was also in Kill Bill. See, Gene Hackman's such a tough name because Gene Hackman. I've only know a couple movies that he's in. I feel very ignorant too, like that. I don't know more movies. There's other actors in the replacement. I say Keanu Reeves because he's just like the most recognizable face in that movie. Hangman. Well, if we do like, Keanu Reeves. Hmm. He was in yeah, so Gene Hackman is in replacements with Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves was in what if we did what if we did oh wow. Keanu Reeves being in, we'll say I keep wanting to say Point Break. I keep wanting to say Patrick Swayze just because it'd be fun to go through Patrick Swayze. So what if we did? So Keanu Reeves was in Point Break with Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze then was in tons of movies. He was in Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, also with Demi Moore, but I don't think I can think of any Demi Moore or freaking Whoopi Goldberg movies. Was Samuel L. Jackson in The Color Purple? Like, is that like terrible to say that? Is that like an assumption? I gotta look it up because Whoopi Goldberg's in the Color Purple. We'll see. I'm gonna look it up real quick on my phone. Just give me a second, y'all. I'm sorry. A little unprofessional of me. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Oh, oh. Hold on. What was I thinking? Keanu Reeves. Oh no, I was going backwards. Never mind. Hold on. Never mind. I was going backwards and then I confused myself, y'all. Sorry. Give me a second. I'm looking it up. Trust me. This is cheating. I know. I just gotta look if he's in The Color Purple. That's it. I just gotta look up the color purple. I just gotta look up the color purple. Was the color purple in the 90s? Yeah, he was not in the color purple. Let's see. Yeah, he was not in the color purple. Yeah, I didn't think he was. Dang, this one's hard a little bit actually, y'all. All right, so oh, dude, yeah, I'm just gonna play one. I'll just play one. Yeah, Gene Hackman with Keanu Reeves in the replacements. Keanu Reeves, let's say Keanu Reeves was in. That's so hard. That's so difficult. It's so many. He's been in so many freaking movies. We could do something like, what if I did here I got okay, I got one. I got it. Okay. This is dumb. All right, so Gene Hackman was in The Replacements with Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves was in Toy Story 4 with Tim Allen. Tim Allen played Buzz Lightyear. Tim Allen was in Wild Hogs, which is that motorcycle movie with John Travolta. And then John Travolta was in Pulp Fiction with Samuel L. Jackson. Okay. Okay. Hallelujah. That works. We'll just do that one. That was a little more difficult. We'll just do that one. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. That's all I have to say, friends. I really do appreciate y'all stopping by. It was a little bit of a longer episode today. I didn't realize I was going to be talking so much about certain things. I get a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out certain episode lengths. I've been doing good lately with the 30 to 45-minute episodes. So an hour plus. Especially with how my intros have gotten a little shorter, it ain't that bad. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit. Really, just wanted to talk a little bit about writer's block and kind of how that's affected my creativity, and then thought it'd be fun to talk about some musicians that turned actors or musicians that can act or whatever, and then I was gonna end it with a little bit more of 6 degrees of separation, but we got one in. It was at least one. We got one in. But I appreciate y'all listening to the episode. I appreciate the chance to get to come on the microphone and talk to y'all. I really do. If you want to listen to this episode, my episodes will always be on YouTube or Spotify podcast under the Odd Thoughts podcast for your entertainment purposes, for your enjoyment. Sorry. If you find anything I ever find fun or relatable, or you just enjoy my content in any way, I appreciate if you subscribed and followed me on those two on YouTube and Spotify. And if you want to follow me on anything else on all my other social medias, I have a Facebook. I go by Gunther Getlicker on Facebook. Both those G's are uppercase. I have an Instagram. I go by Gunther underscore Getlicker on that. Both those G's are lowercase. And then I have a Twitter. I go by at one Mike GG on Twitter. But I appreciate everybody stopping by. Just remember, everybody, to show up for yourself every single day. I love y'all, and just remember, be excellent to each other.